All right, it is 3:30, so I'm going to start going over this. I mentioned this site to you earlier. It's pretty well known. If you go out to Indeed.com, you may want to go out there, and once you're happy with your resume, you may want to post your resume out there. All right, so for example, if I said I wanted to be a Java programmer and I wanted to work in the St. Louis, Missouri area, I can come out there and put that in, click Find Jobs, and you see that it does. All right. Now, I may have told you about that before. What I didn't tell you about before is there's now this. This is called ditto.indeed.com. All right, I just found it yesterday. And if you go out there to ditto.indeed.com, what you'll find, if you look on the screen here, it says, oh, there's a bunch of stuff out here. Notice there's web development, programming languages, apps, infrastructure, and other. So if I wanted to know more about Android, I can click here, and it has a bunch of Android resources. And they have some of their jobs that are available also. So it's ditto.indeed.com. All right? All right, so with that said, let's go over this. I've got, what did I say? Bad news and good news. The bad news is, although I graded your tests, I forgot to bring, I left it on the flash drive, but the good news is I kind of remember pretty much what you got. So I'm going to give you a piece of paper later that has, it'll be within a point or two of what your grade is. All right? Now, some of you literally didn't do things on the test, so you lost points for that. All right, just so you know. All right. So taking it from the top, this was the default page. Again, the default.aspx page built this. I know it doesn't look very good because it's, it doesn't appear very good on very well on here. But again, if I take this page, if I go to default.aspx and go to source mode, right mouse click, and choose view in browser, I'm asking you this. Am I right in assuming that any one of you could create this? Because this is very similar to the interface you'll have to create for the test tomorrow. All right. I haven't written the test. I've written I haven't coded the test. So I'm going to do that tonight. And I will give you, of course, I'll rip out the code and everything because you wouldn't want that. But I will give you, like I did today, basically a working copy that you can go and make a copy of and then bootstrap it, and then you will have, I'm only going to give you one page and you'll have to add the other page. So again, label, 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 label. These four things right here are HTML labels, ASP.NET text box, ASP.NET text box, ASP.NET label, ASP.NET label, 3 ASP.NET buttons, and I don't remember if this was ASP or not. I think it was, though. All right. So again, the idea is that if you put nothing in and you click calculate, you've got the required field attributes or validators in there. If you put something that's out of range, you get the compare validators that are in there. Does that all make sense? All right. Tomorrow, you will have to do a numeric input, and on that numeric input, there will be a range. So it'll be very similar to this. All right. Then I decided there's a bunch of ways I could have written this, but you know how you had the drop-down list that we created for that future value thing we did as a class? You'll have something like that. And you'll be able to pick a value out of there. All right. But there will be probably about 3 inputs, maybe 4. I don't remember what it is. All right. And then based on that, you're going to have to do a calculation or 2. Okay. So if I do put in good stuff, so to speak, so the height must be between 12 and 96. So let's put in 72. and 111. All right, that person, their BMI is 15.01 and they're underweight. So if I click stats, notice what you see. There was one, 72. Since it's the only one, it's both the smallest and the largest, or tallest, the heaviest and the lightest, their average, their weight, and their underweight, etc. All right? So I can click the return button and go back, and let's put in 60 and 50 pounds. I would think that person's going to be underweight, and they are. So if I go back to stats, now you notice how that's changed. Okay. And I guess both of them were underweight, so let's go back again. Let's put in someone who's 70, and we'll make them 155 pounds. I hope that's optimal, and it is. All right. So I go in there, now I've got 2 underweights, 1 optimal weight, and nobody overweight yet, and 3 total. And if I jump back one more time, and let's put in 72 and 333 pounds, that's overweight. And if I go in there, now there's 4. You can see the heaviest. You can see all of the information. Does all that make sense? All right. Let's look at the code that I wrote to do this. And I will tell you, sometimes when I create these things, I'll base it off of something someone else has done, kind of rip it apart, put it back together. This is all mine. So if you don't like it, it's all mine. All right, then you don't like what I did, and that's okay. All right, so I made 2 program constants. I think we talked about these before, because if you're 18.5 or under, you're underweight. If you're 25.0 or over, I guess that whatever that is, you're overweight type of thing. So that's what they are. Okay, you'll notice I have several variables in here. I made them all global. I'm going to, for lack of better words, I'm going to try to minimize the amount of, if you want to make every variable that you use tomorrow global, I guess it's okay. I don't think that's really a good way to code. All right, but I'm not going to lie to you either. I wrote this morning while my morning class was doing something else. They were working on a lab day, and I probably could have written it much better than I did. Okay, but ideally, when you look in here, you should be able to pretty much look at any one of those variables, and they should make sense. All right. Also, please notice, you don't have to do this on your test, but I'm telling you this. I made all those variables static. All right. Because I wanted them to retain their values. Because why? When I first did it, whatever I put in, I didn't have static. So whatever I put in the last time, that's what all those values were set to. That was not correct. All right. Page load did nothing. Calculate. Get used to putting that if is valid. That only belongs in one place typically. All right. Some of you on your test, fortunately or unfortunately, put it in there 2, 3, or 4 times. That is not correct. All right. So if I know it's valid, I add 1 to my valid BMI counter. This is the status that's going to be used basically, and it'll hold underweight, overweight, etc. That kind of stuff. All right. Then I set my height by grabbing the value in the height text box. And I grabbed that height and I added it to my total height. All right, that I'm going to use for the average. Then I checked right away for to see if it was a new tallest and if it was a new smallest. And also notice at the beginning, hopefully this makes sense to you, the range for height. All right, the range for height is 1 to 96. I'm sorry, 12 to 96. I made the tallest 0, which is out of range. I made the smallest 97, which is out of range. That way I'm sure the first time I read in a height, it's going to become both the highest, the tallest and the shortest. And I did the same thing for the weight. All right. So I check right away, do I have a new tallest? Do I have a new smallest? Then I do weight. I add to my total weight counter and I check, do I have a new heaviest? Do I have a new lightest? And those routines are almost all the same routine as you go down here. You can see 3 of the 4 right there. So what am I doing? I'm saying, take the height that I just read in And is it greater than what currently is in tallest? If it is greater, then that becomes the new tallest height. Otherwise, it's the tallest height that's currently in there. So if that confuses you, imagine the tallest. Let's say I put in one height. I just started the program. I put in 60 for my first one. That now is tallest. And I put in, it's also smallest. And I put in 155 for the weight. So that is heaviest. And that's also lightest. Now I come through with my second one and I put in 71 and 300. All right, so 71 now becomes the tallest, 60 stays the smallest, 300 becomes the heaviest, and 155 stays the lightest. Does that make sense? All right. So after I do all that stuff, and again, then I figure out the BMI. I could have used a lot more methods or functions than I did, but I didn't do that. So here's the BMI. Then I check the BMI. If it's less than 18, and that should have even been that. That should have been, I should have used my constants. So that really should have said, if it's less than max under, all right, then do that. And the other one should have said, if it's greater than min over. I mean, it works the way it is, but that's, if I created the constants, I might as well use them. Also, after we figure out the status, I add to the appropriate counter. Does that make sense? I'm not just saying this to you. This is harder than what you have to do tomorrow. All right? You might find tomorrow, you might say, wow, this is all we have to do? Yeah. All right? Okay. Then I grab the BMI and I put that into, so that line is going to grab the BMI and put it into here. That's what that one does. All right, then we figured out the status. We've already done that. So that line is going to put the status into here. That should make sense, hopefully at least, to everybody. Okay. Then we assign the things to our session variables. All right. And I asked you for about 10 pieces or so of information. I'm not going to go through those, but there they are. Probably I didn't even need the height and the weight and the BMI, but the other stuff is necessary. All right. Then I went over the tall check. The small check is the same, except instead of greater than tallest, it's less than smallest. The heavy check and the light check are the same, except instead of greater than heaviest, it's less than lightest. All right. There's the clear button. Again, it will say on your test, you have to code the clear button. I believe that's worth 10 points in the test. And any variable that you have created that's global should be reset in the clear button routine. Also, you should reset any input fields that you have, so any text boxes where you're inputting and any labels where you're outputting, because all that makes sense. All right. Then we've got this is for that button stat. Now I did it this way. This isn't the way they did it exactly in the book. They only checked one thing. I'm checking two. I'm saying that if you left a value out of the height or you left a value out of the weight, all right, so if you just click the stats button right away, okay, and actually that probably should have said return after that, and it didn't. But if you leave one of them blank and you just click the stats button, that message should come up. Does that make sense? All right. Otherwise, what are we doing here? Well, we're copying, again, all that stuff into session variables, and then we're telling the user, go to the stats.aspx. So go to the other one. In other words, go to here. Okay. Where we put all of the answers and all the information, etc. You have to make it smaller and smaller, but you can see it. All right. So as far as that one goes, hopefully by now everybody remembers that when you start working on this tomorrow, I will guarantee you, I will not have done the unobtrusive validation. I will not have included, so you should go to the NuGet package manager and put in the unobtrusive validation, or put it in your code or whatever, and also include your bootstrap stuff. Neither one of them will be included. All right. So after you do that, make sure you add the bootstrap min.js, jQuery.js. Which one comes first, jQuery or bootstrap? No, jQuery. Because bootstrap.min.js uses some jQuery. All right. And then also, you're going to have your own CSS file and bootstrap.min.css. Now that one comes first. The bootstrap.min.css must come before your CSS file. Also, if you look up on the screen, don't forget this. How do I know how important that is? Because I forgot that line this morning, and I couldn't for the life of me understand why my program wasn't working. If you do that, basically you're telling it, it uses that in coordination with Bootstrap. I had everything set up correctly, but instead of showing it horizontal like I set it up, it showed everything vertical. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what it was, and I was starting to get a little miffed. All right? And make sure that you add these files. Again, it doesn't matter if you add the 2 JavaScript and then the 2 CSS, or the 2 CSS and then the 2 JavaScript. But each one of these must be in this order. All right? All right. Then we came in here. You'll do the same kind of thing. All right. I'll give you a picture of the way that mine looks tomorrow. You don't have to do it that way. I've even put this on the test. I said you can either use what I've provided as a guide, or you can create your own. Maybe you want to go nuts and use your own colors and your own whatever. You can do that if you want to. All right. Again, I set it up where I show each row. So there is an HTML label and then an ASP.NET label. And notice how long this is. There literally are about 14 or 15 rows in here. Okay. So again, that gives us this. And then in the C# for this one, there we go, I said if the BMI is not equal to null, if it's not null. In other words, the only way that won't be null, all right, is if we have a BMI. The only way we have a BMI is if we have a height and a weight, correct? So that's all I checked for. So if we have this, now I'm going the other way. Now I'm grabbing the session variables and I'm copying them into my local variables. All right? And then I'm taking the values of those local variables and I'm copying them into my labels. So these lines that you see right here are copying the values in right here. And I didn't do anything to send. I guess I didn't write that. And I didn't do anything for the return either. So why does the return work? Well, you may or may not remember, but if I go back to here, and you'll have to remember to do this, that for my button, my return button, notice what it says here. What does that line do again? It what? It sends you back to the home page. You can either set it there, which is what I did, or you can come down here and do it right here. Notice that if I click the ellipsis, it shows everything. All right. Do you have any questions on chapter 3 or on chapter 4? if you do get done early tomorrow, and if you are thinking, yeah, I definitely want to do something, you can start reading chapter 6. We will go over chapter 6 on Wednesday. All right. If there's time afterward on Wednesday, we will start on the end of chapter exercise, these extra exercises. Remember, I will not be here on Friday of this week. All right. And just because I'm not here, Charles will be here. He will take attendance. All right. I don't know what he's going to tell Paul. I mean, if if like say one of you says, well, I'm going to leave, it's 3:30, there's nobody around here. I don't know how that works. I'll ask, but I don't know how it works. All right. I did send this. I wanted to show this to you. This is what I said, Ms. Zika from, I went out to my Dropbox and I created a shared folder called SCC EDC for St. Charles County Economic Development Council or whatever it was. And I said, please send that information to me as soon as possible. We're eager to get started in my information. All right. And I have no idea if she's going to get back, how fast she'll get back, or whatever. All right.
When did you send that today?
I actually sent it the other day, and it got resent. I sent it from my phone. And half the time when I send stuff from my phone, it bounces back. I don't know why, but it usually takes 2 days to bounce back. So even though I sent it, I think it was late Friday, it bounced back this morning. So I resent it today from here. But I didn't send it till about 2, so she may or may not. I don't think I had anything back in my mail. Nope. So as soon as she gets back to me, I'll let you know. My Dropbox is under my charter account. I don't know why, but it is anyway. But that's where I signed up. That's the address that's associated with it. So hopefully she won't have a problem with that. Last chance. Any questions on anything in chapters 1, 2, 3, or 4? There will be nothing on the test from chapter 5. Hopefully if you have issues when you're working on the test, you will be able to use the debugging techniques that are explained in chapter 5. I would suggest that you bring at least this last copy of junk I gave you, and if it's worth your while, and bring your book with you tomorrow. All right. All right. I don't think it pays to go on into chapter 6. So again, we will do that on Wednesday. I was hoping to get 6 and 7 done this week, but since I'm not here Friday, that probably won't happen. We'll probably get done with 6, and I'll probably be able to lecture on 7. Okay, then what I'm going to ask, that's the other thing, because I was asked this. A couple people had asked me. Yeah, by Thursday, I'm going to pass around that flash drive. And everyone should have the chapter 2 assignment. Most people have already turned that in. I think maybe everybody has. The chapter 3 and the chapter 4 assignments. I've got there's a folder in there now with each one of your names. I'm going to copy that flash drive to another flash drive because unknown to me, the one that I used is only a 1 gig. All right, I've got a 32 gig at home. I think I'm going to copy it there because that should hold probably everything for the whole semester. That gives each of you 4 gig. So I think that'll be enough. All right. So that means that by the end of next week, all right, not this week, but by the end of next week, you will be turning in, we will add to this chapter 6 and chapter 7 at a minimum. Okay? And again, my hope is by the end of this month, we're going to be pretty much through the first 11 chapters, even if we start on the project. All right? That way, boom, chapters 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 are all on databases. All right, we'll do some database stuff as a class, and then we'll be able to start working on this stuff for her. All right? That's, like I said, I didn't know how long this would take, so that's all I have.